if the Avatar did exist, I wish they would beat the living hell out of someone at Paramount who thought that this movie was a good idea. The Last Airbender tells the story of a boy named Aang, who is the last Airbender, the most recent Avatar, and he has to master all four elements, restore balance to the world, and stop the Fire Nation from conquering both the Earth Tribe and the Water Tribe. Hello and welcome back to another review from HLHReviews. Today I will be reviewing The Last Airbender, the movie that was the first attempt to adapt the cartoon in live action. So just to give you all some quick thoughts, Avatar The Last Airbender was one of those cartoons that I would watch pretty much every single time I would visit my cousin because he lived at, his grandmother's house. I would just get so excited whenever the intro came on, and I would just get so immersed with the world, the lore, and even the characters especially. I recently relived my childhood just a couple of days ago because I watched book 1 of Avatar The Last Airbender, and I did this just to have the cartoon fresh in my mind because Netflix is going to be releasing their new live-action television series tomorrow. I never watched The Legend of Korra, so that's a boat that I'm going to have to catch up to once I'm done reviewing this movie. And once I'm done reviewing the Netflix live-action series, and when I'm done watching Avatar The Last Airbender. But right now, we gotta talk about basically the black sheep of this entire franchise. And that is The Last Airbender movie, written, produced, and directed by M. Night Shyamalan. Now, oddly enough, I never watched this movie before, so this is it's a first-time watch for me, basically. And I don't know why, because even though I love the cartoon, I just never got a chance to watch this movie. Even growing up, and look, let me tell you, even growing up, I have never heard one single positive thing about this movie, whether that's from Airbender fans or even if it's from, your casual moviegoer. This is one of those movies that everyone despises, and it's always labeled as one of the worst movies of all time. Now, usually when I hear that and when I go to a movie that's always being labeled like that, usually what happens is my expectations get lowered from whenever I hear how bad a movie is, and when I watch the movie, it kind of disappoints me a little bit of how bad the movie actually is. Sometimes I'll just, watch the movie and I usually come out like, okay, that movie wasn't good by any means, but let's just tone it down a little bit, okay? You guys were being a little bit too far with it. The movie wasn't as bad as you guys made it out to be. Well,
that is one big pile of shit.
Yeah. This was horrible. Well, let's go over why, shall we? Starting this off with the positives for The Last Airbender. And I really do have to say these positives out just so I can have something positive to say about the movie, because the rest of the video is just going to be me bitching and complaining about it. So, okay, here we go. With the positives, the biggest one for me is that I thought the visual effects looked fine. The way they were able to recreate air bending, fire bending, earth bending, and even water bending, especially it did look cool for 2010 standards, the visual effects. And I even enjoyed seeing how the water moves, as the characters are bending the water. It looks the way that it did in the cartoon. So yeah, the visual effects, honestly, it looked cool. Most of the time. The score that James Newton Howard gave for the movie is good. James Newton Howard, he's a decent film composer. He worked on movies like the original Space Jam, Peter Jackson's King Kong, Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and I can go on and on. He also worked with M. Night Shyamalan on his movies, starting with The Sixth Sense. So yeah, overall, the soundtrack, it was pretty good, even though I kind of wanted to see him incorporate themes from the cartoon. But overall, decent soundtrack that he composed. The last thing that I will positively say about the movie is when the movie opens up and you get this recreation of the water, earth, fire, and air segments that we basically see at the beginning of every single episode of the cartoon, and it got me. Like when that showed up, those recreations, I was just sitting there going like, okay, maybe this will be good. And now on to the negatives. What do I even say? It's The Last Airbender. So, let's just go over the minor things and then we'll get to the major criticisms that I have with The Last Airbender. And the first thing to get out of the way first is the editing, which was terrible. Now, you have some shots in this movie that dissolve, you're in one scene and then it dissolves into another. And although this would be fine, it is used way too fucking much throughout this movie. Like, it even gets to the point where it's laughable. Like, you have this scene, there's a shot of these Fire Nation soldiers, and they're running like, oh, we're gonna get into an action scene, and then it just dissolves into a forest. Why the hell would you have a shot like that where you're seeing the soldiers or running outside like, oh, okay, we're gonna get into a decent action scene, and then you just dissolve into a forest? That's something an amateur as hell editor would have done for a failed college film project. I mean, look, I'm an amateur as hell editor when it comes to doing these videos, but even I could have done a much better job than whoever the hell they hired to edit this movie. And yeah, none of this is even helped with Shyamalan's direction, which is terrible. Most of the action scenes in this movie are all shot as if it's one shot. Now, look, I think one shot is a good way to shoot scenes, like even if it's for action, as long as it's executed well. This is not the case whatsoever in this movie. The scenes are not directed enough for one shot. And it's mainly because they lack in any cuts in the scenes. So you rarely get to see how the actors react or even their facial expressions when they fight. And now we get into the acting, and my God, was it awful to sit through. And I actually feel so bad for some of these actors who had to do this movie, including the kid who plays Ong. The kid, honest to God, he looked like he was giving it his all. But pretty much this entire cast, they all seriously fall under the categories of doesn't give a fuck, completely miscast, or they're just given complete garbage to work with. You have Dev Patel in here playing Zuko, and he would go on to get nominated for an Oscar. And my God, they just don't get him anything to work with other than what he was given. You even have Mr. Aziz from Spider-Man 2. He's playing Commander Zhao, and he does a fucking terrible job at it. First off, he's completely miscast as this character right off the bat. That is not helping his performance at all. And the way he delivers his lines, it literally sounds like he's playing a parody version of the Commander Zhao character from the cartoon.
Don't worry, I'm not gonna kill you. Besides, you'd just be reborn again.
General Hero, I'm glad you could accept my invitation to join us on this historic event.
You're fired.
I mean, my God, you even have actors in this movie who I might blame the direction from Shyamalan on this, but you get actors in here who they just deliver no emotion in the characters that they're playing. Like, you have this actor who's playing Sokka, or in this case, Sokka, and, like, he always, like, has this face whenever he's, like, in a scene. Like, in almost every single scene that he's in. Like, even when he's delivering lines, it's just, I don't think you notice, Katara, but we have started a rebellion. And now, we get to the parts that really piss me off while watching this movie. And it's mainly because the writing in this movie, both in the way with the characters and the way Shyamalan tried to adapt Book 1 as an hour-and-a-half film, is absolute dog shit. First things first, what the hell is with the mispronunciations that this movie has? You have Aang, who's pronounced as Ong. Avatar is pronounced as Avatar. Asaka is pronounced as Sokka, and General Iroh, he gets his name pronounced as General Iroh. Shyamalan, were you so fucking lazy while writing this movie that you just didn't like the way the words were pronounced in the cartoon, and you just decided to say, fuck it, I'm just gonna pronounce these words in the way I want to, because that's gonna sound way more cooler. Which, spoiler alert, no, it doesn't. The characters in the way that they're written is just flat out abysmal. Ong, there's nothing about him that reminds you of Aang from the cartoons. Like, there's no humor about him, there's no bravery with him. He's just here to destine himself to become the Avatar, and that's pretty much his whole entire character arc. Sokka here, there's no goofiness with him. Like, there's not even any confidence that he had in Book 1. All he is just a brooding guy, and that's his entire character arc. Katara, fucking generic as hell. Like, there's nothing that this version of Katara has that is, like, in any way, shape, or form what she was in the cartoon. And again, you get other characters, like, from the villain side of things. You have Zuko. He just wants to capture Aang to restore his honor. Like, okay, fine. That's his entire character. Iroh, nothing at all like his cartoon counterpart. There's no goofiness. There's no compassion that he has. And there's not even, like, a father-like thing that he had with Zuko. No, you don't get any of that shit. And yeah, Zhao, fucking generic as hell for a villain. It just seriously feels like M. Night Shyamalan, like, he hated the characters from the cartoon and decided to just brand the characters' names into these generic as hell characters who don't get any meaningful development as characters. An example of how fucking poor the attempt of writing is when you have Iroh and Zhao, who arrive at the Northern Water Tribe Kingdom, and Zhao gets to the Moon Spirit, in the pond, so that he and the Fire Nation can defeat the Northern Water Tribe. So you have Zhao, who's gotten the Moon Spirit in his fucking hand, and you have Iroh just standing next to him, and all he's doing is, Zhao, you cannot mess with the spirits. If you do that, we will all lose balance in this world. Like, yeah, he just doesn't even attempt to stop him. Like, as he's standing there, and as Zhao's holding that fucking fish, the Moon Spirit, he's just fucking standing there. Iroh from the cartoon wouldn't have done that shit. What the fuck are you doing with this script? Oh my god, trust me, that wasn't even the worst part. That wasn't even the worst part of how poorly written this movie is. They try to give Sokka and Yue, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, development where Yue has to sacrifice herself by, giving life to the moon spirit. And let me tell you, it is nothing at all like the cartoon where Sokka was clearly in love with Yue, and so was she with Sokka, and it is simply because she could not commit to that. She could not commit to wanting to, share her feelings towards him. And it's because she was in an arranged marriage with a Northern Water Tribe member. And yeah, do you want to know why that doesn't work in the movie the way it did in the cartoon? Because you don't get any of that shit. That is not mentioned at all throughout the whole movie. And they seriously try to give you this development that Sokka was apparently in love with Yue, and her as well with Sokka. But it's all rushed like this.
I can't let you do this. I'm supposed to protect you.
My people are dying, Sokka.
But you would...
I'm scared. Don't make me any more scared. I will miss you more than you know.
Yue, this would have been heartwarming, except for the fact that you met Sokka... 2 fucking days ago! Look, I understand that this is a movie and that you can't just fit everything from book 1 into an hour-and-a-half runtime. But how lazy do you have to be as a writer to not, at the very fucking least, just show us a scene or two of these two having feelings for each other? Why the fuck could you not do that? And that all just leads into the biggest issue that this movie has. And it's that Shyamalan tried to fit book 1 into a feature-length, film, like an hour and a half. But the problem is, with how short of a runtime this movie has, he only included the necessary parts, and he basically sacrificed any character development the characters had through that whole storyline that book 1 had. Like, look, book 1 in and of itself, it's amazing. And I would not change a single thing about it. But you just watching it, it is so blatantly obvious. Like, even if you were to do book 1 as like a 3-hour film, it's blatantly obvious that there's way too much there. There is way too much story, way too much lore in order to fit that into a movie. So, but hey, just Shyamalan, it's like he just said, fuck it. I'm just gonna cram book 1 into an hour-and-a-half feature film. I'm just gonna take the necessary parts of what basically happened in book 1, and then we're just gonna forget all the rest of the shit of what made book 1 even remotely an amazing storyline. And look, even if this movie was successful enough to, see the light of day, that we would be getting books 2 and 3 as movies, I have no fucking clue how the hell they were able, how the hell are they able to, or at least how they would have been able to adapt book 2 and 3. My only guess is that it would have gotten so much fucking worse from that point onward. When you have a filmmaker who just clearly doesn't know, or at times just flat out doesn't even care about the source material, that they are in charge of adapting it, that pisses me off to no end. Because if you have no passion in what you're doing, whether that's the writing or even the directing, just fucking leave the project, okay? Don't take the job, don't take the paycheck, because all you're doing by not having any single form of passion in what you were doing throughout this entire runtime is just shitting on a beloved cartoon that millions of people watch and just love it to death. Now, look, thankfully, M. Night Shyamalan, he's regretted doing the movie and he acknowledges the movie's mistakes. But at the end of the day, it is not enough to excuse the movie's poor attempt of wanting to adapt a beloved cartoon like Avatar: The Last Airbender. So, all in all, if you couldn't tell by this point, I hated The Last Airbender. Like, it just pissed me off with the decisions that they made with it. And it is definitely one of the worst attempts of adapting another form of medium into live action that I have ever watched since I've been a reviewer on YouTube. And look, I might get a comment on this video that tells me, hey, you know, the movie wasn't as bad as you made it out to be in your review, because I expected my eyes to melt and bleed, and it never got on that level for me. And you know what? If you're going to be that type of person that comments something like that, whatever, okay? You're just you. But I can guarantee you one thing. I am never going to see any Avatar: The Last Airbender fan that tells me or anyone else on this planet that this movie was good. Absolutely none. So, hopefully Netflix gives us a much better attempt of adapting this cartoon into live action, because, man, this movie was a steaming pile of shit. So if you are a fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender and you want to see it put in movie form, just watch the cartoon and imagine what it would be like if it was turned into a movie. And I can guarantee you that whatever you imagine in your head is 1,000 times better than what this movie is. So for all of the decisions that they made with this movie, and because they blatantly pissed me off with those decisions, this movie earns the honor of being the first to burn in hell. But thank you guys so much for watching this review. Please tell me how you feel about this film down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. And to see a lot more videos from me in the near future, hit the subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you can get notified every single time I upload. I hope you all have a blessed life, and in case I don't ever get to meet you, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.